Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Perry, episode 139. Gonna get Perry on the line in just a second. Well, we're gonna be talking about the war in Iran, the developments there. We're also gonna be talking about mail-in ballots and SCOTUS and where they are on a decision for election day, accepting ballots before election day. And we're going to talk a little bit about Democratic presidential hopeful J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois and has egg on his face after the latest crime involving illegal alien. A young college student got murdered there just recently by an illegal alien, so we're going to get into that as well. So let's see if we can't get Perry on the line.
Hello.
Hey, Perry, welcome. Good to talk to you, my friend. How's it going down there in Florida?
It's always great down here, brother. It's always great down here. Even an overcast day down here in Florida is better than a sunshiny day up there in Connecticut.
It was pretty nice today. It didn't really it got a little bit above 50, but it was beautiful and sunny. So we're going to get right into it. There's a lot to talk about. I think I'm going to go in reverse order here. And I want to start talking about this most recent murder in Chicago. A Loyola student got shot in the back by an illegal alien at a place where just a week prior, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, went out there and said, look, it's 5 a.m. and I'm perfectly safe. But you didn't see him go there at 1 or 2 a.m. when it probably wasn't safe. I know you wanted to talk about J.B. Pritzker. What you say?
Well, after the unfortunate events that took place there a couple of days ago, I would have said, he just tripped all over his dick, but I don't think he can find it in all the layers of fat he has. So, it's not surprising at all because we all know where Democrats like Pritzker or Mondani, or for that matter, 55th or Schmucky Chucky, we know where their interests lie. It doesn't lie with their constituencies. Let me restate that. Their voter constituencies, because their constituencies are not the same as those who vote for them. And, when Pritzker made that ridiculous remark, he didn't bother mentioning, oh, by the way, he did have his state trooper bodyguards within 10 feet of him when he went down there on the riverside of Chicago. Okay, he didn't bother to mention that. He also, and most importantly, did not show any remorse towards the family whose loved one was shot, killed, and thus murdered, more importantly, murdered by what? Oh, that's right, an illegal alien that he supported the release of. He had no problem with this individual being released instead of being detained for, I almost said INS, for ICE to come and pick up and remove from the country. Imagine if when that use of a human being. If he had, in fact, been held in custody long enough and thus have the
Oh, we lost him. There goes Perry. We were in the middle of talking about J.B. Pritzker and his responsibility regarding what happened in Chicago, where a Loyola student, 18 years old, a girl got shot in the back when she was confronted late night in that very park, calling.
Please leave your message for.
Hold on.
Sorry, mailbox is full. To send an SMS notification.
Are you there?
I'm here.
All right.
Good thing we have callback. Where you lost me.
We were at the end there talking about J.B. Pritzker.
Well, if you did not, if your audience did not hear, and if they did, please correct me. The fact that he supported the release of this animal, and by the way, you know, this guy has a laundry list of violent convictions, and yet they didn't think it was wise to hold him in custody to remove from our country. So that now this person is dead. And like I said, say earlier, he doesn't show any remorse whatsoever towards her family for their loss at the behest of his policy. And, you know, this is something I've always said about the lame brain media. They will never hold Democrats liable for their policies, for their positions when they are proven to be abject failures. They'll do it all the time against Republicans and conservatives, but they will never hold Democrats in contempt for their behavior. And what makes me truly disgusted by this, you know, Nepo baby, and that's what he is, acting the way he is. I don't even think he gets past the February primary. I honestly believe by the time we get to South Carolina, which would be, I think, mid to late February, I think he's going to be out of the race, because all of this is just like, I think that's going to happen also to the Golden Boy Hair Club for Men out there in California.
Yeah.
I think both these guys are going to be knocked out by the time we get to South Carolina next February.
But by whom? Because
By the electorate.
apparently Kamala Harris is polling ahead of both of them. I think their best bet is Andy Beshear. We'll see if he throws his hat in the ring. I think he will. And also, I think Josh Shapiro might take a shot at it. But right now, the only person that's polling is Kamala Harris.
Hey, bring it on.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Well,
it's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Yeah. Well, they didn't learn from their mistake. They were like, what? You keep hearing from Democrats, she was a great candidate. Really? I mean,
it was accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she was a district attorney. And of course, she was on her knees all during the time she was trying to get the position.
Yeah.
And then she got her promotion to AG for the state of California. Well, the best way to get rid of her and was to send her to Washington as a U.S. senator. And, you know, her ex-boyfriend helped her get the money she needed to run a successful campaign, and a one-time senator to add to her resume, just like Hildebeest, no different than Michelle Obama. All of these women are held in high esteem, and to which I say, for what?
Right.
And then, of course, people who support them run off the positions they held.
Right.
How did they get there? What was their record while they were there? Nobody talks about that. So my attitude is, you want to go down this road again, I'll be happy to show you the way.
Yeah. I don't know why they would want to invest again into someone as mindless as Kamala Harris. They had Joe Biden. Is that what they want? A mindless figurehead to, just mindlessly go along with whatever the progressive and radical left want. I guess that's what they want.
Well, to answer your rhetorical question, that is what the men in the 21st century smoke-filled rooms do want. Yeah, because those are the people they can control.
Yeah.
They were able to control both Bush presidency. They were able to control, to a certain extent, the Obama presidency. And this is the first presidency of the 21st century that nobody can slap down and say, you will not do that. And they don't want that, because that's known as unpredictability. We, meaning those who want to control outcomes, we can't have that. We need people that will do what we want them to do, so we can accomplish whatever it is we want to accomplish, whether it is removing people's First Amendment rights, whether it is forcing people to be jabbed with an experimental concoction they called at the time a vaccine, or whether we will allow parents who have seen the light and just all the anti-society programs that their children are being exposed to in government schools, and thus wanting to homeschool. No, we can't have people homeschooling their children, because that means those kids, as they grow up, will be able to think in a critical nature, being able to make decisions for themselves. We don't want that. We don't want that for our politicians, and we certainly don't want that for an electorate, no matter what Thomas Jefferson said. And that's why, Big Bad Orange Man right now is the reason why those who like to control outcomes want someone like Kamala.
Right.
I don't think he gets there either. I think you're on track. I think Qatar is not the only one, but he's the most obvious. Much less Shapiro, who really scares me, because that dude is smooth. He's the Democrat version of JD when it comes to speaking to people in front of a camera.
Yeah.
They're both accomplished attorneys. So, Shapiro was the AG of Pennsylvania before he ran for governor. And he talks very smoothly. But he has this one six-pointed problem known as the Star of David as a problem. It's gonna hold him back.
Yeah.
At least in the Democrat Party. And so that's why he probably isn't announcing yet. I think you have those two guys that scare me the most, and if they're smart, they're going to sit back, keep their mouth shut, keep their powder dry, and let the others make fools of themselves, and then present themselves as saviors to the party.
Yeah.
That's what I think will end up happening.
Yeah. You think Hillary?
I think Joe did the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You think Hillary will run again?
Hillary can't keep her head from shaking long enough to run again.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I understand Joe Biden kind of waited in the background until he got ready to be anointed by Clyburn in South Carolina. All right, so I want to ask you about Donald Trump, whether you think he's controlled. But before I get into that, I want to talk about SCOTUS. You wanted to talk about mail-in, which I call mail-out ballots. But SCOTUS,
That's what I call them.
yeah, SCOTUS is ready to decide on the issue of whether to rule on whether states can prolong election day to accept mail-in ballots past election day. Basically, usually, in my experience, uh, uh, they stop taking ballots at midnight on election day, but that has changed from state to state. And now places like California have 3 or 4 days after election day where they keep accepting ballots, obviously, when they know how much the Republican has. And if they need more votes, they can get them.
Of course, I only heard excerpts um, and the questions that conservative judges were asking, specifically Alito. To summarize his point, the Constitution is specific to what day is election day, and that's what matters. I really, Rudy, I don't understand for the life of me why it's so fucking hard for people on our side of the political aisle to stand up and say it's not that difficult to request an absentee ballot. But if you don't want to request an absentee ballot, again, I asked you to do some homework. You didn't do it. I don't know of any state in our country. I'm sure there has to be at least one or two. Maybe that's why Murkowski doesn't want to vote for the Save America Act. I don't know of a single state that does not have early voting. So if you don't want to vote physically, walk into a polling place and cast a vote on election day, you have two accepted options. You can vote early, or, and by early, it's a minimum 2 or 3 week early vote. You can go to whatever city it's in and cast your vote in that one specific polling precinct that's closest your home. I live in a fairly rural county. It's not a very wealthy county. And yet, for 2 weeks prior to any election, including primaries, there are 6 polling precincts open 7 days a week, 2 weeks prior to election day or primary day. So if you don't want to take an absentee ballot, which people can fact, so you and I have said this many times that we have discussed this on your show. Chain of custody is key. It's easy to track. It's easy to verify. If you don't want to do an absentee ballot, then simply go to the closest early voting precinct, because you're allowed, and cast your vote at one of the early voting precinct buildings. It's not that difficult. Why do we have to have a state send out, in some cases, more ballots throughout the state than there are registered voters? Why do we have to do that? And that's a question that people who hold elected office on our side of the political aisle don't say to the other side. We're not trying to make this harder. We're just trying to make it fair and honest.
Right.
That's all we're trying to do. And you know something? Our country is celebrating its 250th birthday of independence. And for the first 230 years, I would say 230 years, 220 years, we didn't have to have motor voter, where when you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles to apply for your driver's license, you also get a card to fill out to register to vote. Don't have to prove anything there. You just have to prove that you are a resident. And yeah, there's that little box to check off. You are a legal American citizen with all rights so that you are eligible to vote. You have to check that box. But there's nobody proving that. And you
For
can
now.
thank Willie for that, because that was one of the first things he pushed through in 1993. Okay? Up until 1993, you had to take your birth certificate, you had to take your radio driver, your driver's license, and a form you when you registered to vote. And as long as everything lined up, you were registered. You had to physically go to the registrar of voters office and make the effort to vote. Or in my case, at age 17 and a half, I was able to do it in school. I registered to vote in school, in high school. So again, coming back and trying to close the loop here. So why do we need mail out voter
Ballots.
Why?
Yeah.
There's only one reason. We know what it is, and that's why it has to come to an end. And I believe that's part of why SCOTUS is going to rule the way you and I think they're going to rule. It'll be a 6-3, I'm sure, and that's fine.
I think the mail-in ballots is an issue. They're talking about to push the SAVE Act through. They're talking about getting rid of the prohibition of mail-in ballots. So that might not even go through. Whether we see a ruling from SCOTUS or not on that issue, we might have to wait a little while. But they're talking about, specifically, you mentioned Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. She's saying she didn't want to get rid of mail-out ballots because she has a lot of rural constituents. But like you said, you can apply to get absentee ballot. You don't have to wait to apply. There's not a window. And as long as you mail it in with enough time to get there by election day, you should be good. Like
Right.
we talked about, obviously, mail out ballots. There's a chain of custody issue there that can't be resolved, and that's why the Democrats like it, because it involves it opens the door for fraud, as we talked about.
Well, look, just 2 weeks ago, it may have been Nick Shirley, it could have been Nick Saber, it could have been somebody else, but they did an expose on what's happening or was happening at the time in Los Angeles, where people were being paid $5 to sign a form registering to vote, and they were being given the very name that they had to put on the ballot. It didn't have to be theirs. They could do multiples, and they got paid for every single ballot. And in one case, I think the woman's name was Carol. They didn't say what her last name was because they had found this name and where this woman lived, and they were telling this homeless person, "This is the name you have to put down, Carol," and then they blocked out her last name, and here's where you need to sign her name, not your name. And that was happening in Los Angeles. So, when you got morons like Hair Club for Men talking about how the Republicans are trying to move to a position because they're going to lose in this upcoming election, we may not have an election this year because they don't want there to be an election.
Yeah.
That's what he was literally recorded on camera saying in an interview as recently as, I guess, last week.
Yeah. Well,
Okay?
yeah.
Coming from the man who's throwing elections in his own state year after year. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know why? Because the two GOP candidates for governor are polling ahead of all the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's no surprise.
That goes to show you how sad it is in California.
Yeah.
When you literally, it looks like it'll be a runoff between two Republicans. I never thought I'd see that in my life.
Yeah, well, I think the fires and the Palisades and Malibu area there had a lot to do with changing people's minds, because Trump came in and he goes, "You're not letting people build." And he still wants to do something about building permits nationwide, but affecting California mostly. But he sat down there with Karen Bass and he said, "You're not letting people build." And she said, "Yes, I am." And still, we only have 3,000 permits out of uh, approximately 16,000 homes, and only a few dozen have been built. All right, let's move
Right.
on to unless you want to have a last word on that, and then I want to get to Trump and Iran.
Well, the only thing I want to add to that is Karen Bass is another example of just how far the Democrats have fallen. This is a woman who left the country at a time when she was being told, look, we're in a really dangerous situation right now with the Santa Ana winds and how dry everything is. All it's going to take is one spark, and there could be parts of Los Angeles that go up in flames. He was told that by the fire chief, be ultimately fired because the fire chief wouldn't fall on her sword, okay, and protect Karen Bass. He's still in power.
Yeah,
He's still there. He's done everything she can to make life miserable for Los Angelenos, and yet the people in that county and city will continue to vote Democrat. Governor may be a different story this year, but they will vote Democrat,
yeah,
and that's really sad.
yeah.
It's really sad.
Yeah, she's a communist, Cuban communist agent, as far as I'm concerned. All right, Trump and Iran. So you've heard the dust up. Trump is talking, apparently, according to the liberal media. Trump's not talking to anybody. He's just talking to the air. And the Iranians said they're not talking. But he's saying he's got a deal. How do you parse this all out? Do you think he's talking to somebody, and what do you think's on the horizon? Because there's a lot going on. We're talking about 82nd Airborne being introduced into theater. We're talking about two Marine regiments going in as well. What is your take on, is Trump talking to the Iranians? Are the Iranians talking? Are they ready to give up? And what's Israel going to do? How does this all play out for you?
Well, let's start with Trump. I'm sure he is talking to somebody. We just don't know who he's talking to. He's not talking to himself in the mirror. The problem right now for the Iranians is that what is left of civilian control, whether it is the hierarchy of the clerics or whether it is the mouthpieces that the Ayatollah has put in place to do the public speaking on behalf of the Iranian revolutionary government, they have been picked off one at a time. And so whoever it is that Trump is talking to, as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, there's a lot of Iranian military that are not showing up at work. They're not showing up at their bases. They're not. There's a lot of people that in the civilian law enforcement that are walking away from their positions. They've had enough. Well, there are civilian politicians who have also had enough. They see the writing on the wall, and they would much rather live by making peace with bad orange man than dying a martyr, which is what the Ayatollah has commanded them to do. The problem they have is they're not the ones in charge of the military. And the military controls everything, just like in Cuba. The military controls everything. And so you have the Iranian guards who have sworn an oath, a blood oath, to fight to the death and with the hopes of bringing the what is it, the 12th Imam?
Yep.
That's their goal. And so they would much rather die a martyr than live under true democratic rule. So that's where we have a problem. That's why I believe Trump is talking to somebody. It could even be the Speaker of the Iranian House, for all we know, okay, who claims he is not talking to anybody at the United States government. That it could be him, for all we know. Because if he admits that he's trying to find a way out of this box that they are now in, well, he won't have to wait for a United States or Israeli smart bomb to take him out as he's going to his car, because the Iranian guard will do it for him. He will be labeled a traitor. So he can't admit to talking to us. He can't admit to wanting to sue for peace, because his own people will kill him. So that's where the problem lies. They've made it clear they're not going to surrender. They are not going to agree to give up their ambitions for a nuclear device. They're not going to give up on supporting their proxies like the Houthis and Hezbollah. There's no honor in that for them, and that's how they look at everything. They're looking at this strictly from a standpoint that this life is not important. It's the ever afterlife that matters, and I'm willing to die a martyr in order to achieve my ultimate goal of reaching paradise.
So have you
Those
heard?
are the people that are running the military.
So have you heard any of Trump's 15-point peace plan, which is basically dictating to the Iranians? And he said the Iranians have agreed. Well, at least the people he has been talking to. He says the Iranians have agreed to give up their nuclear program. And among of the other points of the plan is no ballistic missiles, free flow of commerce through the Hormuz Strait, et cetera, et cetera. So you're saying that they're not going to go for it?
Yeah, what the civilians say is not what the military will do. The military is basically anointed by the Ayatollah, or in this case, the late Ayatollah. And over the past 47 years, the men that were in control of the Iranian government, I'm talking about the Ayatollah, built this vicious military power in the Middle East with the one goal of creating havoc throughout the world. And everything they said in the past, as recently as last week, the week before, the foreign minister of Iran was interviewed, and I saw that clip tonight. He said during an interview, "No, we deliberately did not want to build an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of 2,500 kilometers. We wanted to stay just within our region. We didn't want to be labeled a threat to the rest of the world. So we deliberately have not designed any missiles of that nature." Well, what did they launch last weekend? Okay,
Or did they?
last week?
Or did they? Because there's conspiracy theories.
You brought it up yesterday, and you brought that up today on your show. But you also were wise in pointing out to your audience they haven't denied it. So there could be people that want to make the claim that this is a false flag. I don't think so, because nothing this regime has done in 47 years has ever been done with the idea of being a member of the community of nations. nothing. And in order to get what they want, because again, they are only a country of 92 million people. That's still a lot of people. But you can't be a country that is a pariah to the entire United Nations and expect to dominate the entire world, except to say you can control the flow of oil. And what is the one thing every president, since, I want to say, going all the way back to Johnson, not Johnson, certainly Nixon, said, we, meaning the United States, will make any sacrifice necessary to see to it that the free flow of oil is never impeded. And that is what has always made the Middle East a tinderbox, and what has kept it a tinderbox in the last, let's say, 20 years has been Iran's long-term goal of dominating the entire region and threatening the rest of the world with not one, but two things: an intercontinental ballistic missile that is also capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. And when you look at how many of these launchers they continue to bring out, the United States alone has taken out over 9,000 targets by air. We're not counting what the Israelis have done. Just us. In 3 weeks, that's 3,000 targets a week that our Air Force and our Navy pilots have been successful at eliminating. And yet, they continue to still have launchers and obviously the munitions to launch from those launchers, knowing that every time they bring one of those out of a tunnel, we're going to take it out. That's okay. You could blow up the entrance to the tunnel, no problem. While you're busy blowing up other ones, we're going to come in with heavy equipment, clear out the tunnel, and get ready to fire off another one. They're willing to sacrifice not only their hardware, they're willing to sacrifice their people. And this is why I'm saying there's a lot of those members of the military who do not want to drive those missile trucks, because those articulating trucks are a target the moment they turn on those radars. My point goes back to what I said 5 minutes ago. How is it, after we've decimated them over the course of 3.5 weeks now, they are still able to continue to launch? It's amazing just how much of a stockpile they have.
Yeah.
We've put their entire Navy on the ocean floor. They don't have a Navy anymore. They don't have an Air Force anymore, but they're continuing the fight.
Yeah. So, so you're sounding like what is going to go in the IRGC is going to fight it alone, despite what any civilian leadership might have to say about that. So, what do you think is going to happen? So, realistically, we got a couple weeks. What do you think is going to pan out in the next couple weeks? You think they're going to be 82nd Airborne is going to land on the Hormuz cliffs or on Karg Island? Because many people said, oh, they're bringing in the Marines. I go, there will be no amphibious landing. They're going to bring in paratroopers. And sure enough, within a week of me saying that, now we have the 82nd Airborne being activated. And Trump is promising free flow of oil. It seems like even China's on board. Our allies are starting to line up now on a post-conflict phase. What do you think is going to transpire in the next couple weeks?
Well, you and I have always said that Trump is very good with head fakes. And I think the head fake coming right now is that 5 days that he's given the Iranians to agree to what I would call as a conditional surrender. The reason for that 5 days is for what you just said. He's going to make sure both the Marines and the 82nd are positioned. So if we have to, we can send them in. Now, I tend to agree with you. I don't think an amphibious landing is in the cards, but I think they're there as backup because paratroopers don't have heavy equipment with them.
Yeah, it's a light
The
infantry.
Marines.
Yep.
So that's why the Marines are being brought in as an expeditionary force as backup. I'm not happy about this. As you have repeatedly said to your audience over these past 3 weeks, look, neither of us wanted war. But the reality is we were at a point of no return. And this is something that's not being talked about. Now, you want to call both Steve Witkoff and Jared liars? Okay, fine. You go ahead and call them Jew bastard liars. That's fine. But I tend to think that they, and keep in mind, Jared went to grad school at Oxford, I think it was Oxford, with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. That's how close they are. Now, that's saying something about a Jew and a Muslim. Now, if you want to try and connect more dots, well, what's happening? Go back to 1991 when the Kuwaitis called our military forces their white slaves because it was our blood and treasure that gave them their country back. Well, that's what I think is going on right now with Saudi Arabia, with Oman, with the UAE, Bahrain. Look, they're all being hit by Iranian missiles. They are all supporting us, and the Saudis are supporting us more than the others because we're using our bases there. And they have threatened also to enter the fight. But they're not going to because they've got their white slaves doing their dirty work for them. And so I honestly think, I hope I'm wrong, Rudy. I really do. But I honestly think when push comes to shove and the IRGC refuses to listen to the civilian government, I don't think there'll be any choice but to put boots on the ground, and it will be the end of Trump's presidency. I guarantee it.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
probably. I'm worried about that as well. I don't think it's going to happen. I think I just don't see it happening. What I do see happening in the next couple of weeks, I think, is continued bombardment, and they're going to go after the electrical infrastructure because, as one pundit put it very nicely, I think was it even Trump? I think it might have even been Trump, but someone had mentioned, well, they're hiding in their tunnels and their caves and their bunkers, and that's one thing. But when the lights go out, it's a completely different thing. So if they attack the electrical grid, I think that's going to put a little bit more pressure, but I happen to agree with you. I think the IRGC are fanatical, and they've been told that this fight would come, and here it is. And I think they're just going to rely on what they've been told and fight to the death, which makes this whole expedition so treacherous, is what you're dealing with. I hope and pray that we're going to have civilian leadership in Iran take hold and say, we don't want to put our people through this, but you're one step away from a military junta in Iran. So, they're running the show. Is there any indication that they won't keep running the show? My problem is, what are the Chinese bringing in? When will the Persian Gulf be safe for the United States Navy to sail in there, if ever, or if any other warships. They're talking about UK ships going in there and escorting tankers and so forth and so on. Um, when, if ever, will the Persian Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz truly be safe, and what will that take? I mean,
Well,
I have nothing
well,
against the
the only
Persian
way,
people, but I don't care. Reality, what we need realistically is goods flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, because we're fresh out of fertilizer.
that's right. That's right. And something I read today online, me being the cruise meister, I get all kinds of online publications about the cruise industry. And one of the publications that I read on that industry today had an article. There are currently 5 cruise ships caught in the Persian Gulf.
Wow.
They can't get out.
Wow.
They're stuck there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have my big thing here is I think the information Trump was getting, disinfo or real info, was this is the time to act. And I think he was thinking in terms of what happens in the future. Let's say we go to a war with China, and China and Russia are controlling 80 to 90% of the world's fertilizer, because it was only a month ago when they had that glyphosate dust up where Trump asked the farmers in America, what do you need? And they said chemical fertilizer and glyphosate, the herbicide, to grow food, a lot of food in a time of crisis. And that's what they say they needed. And then Trump looked around and go, hey, our enemies control 80%, or at least the waterways, which, where we get 80% of the fertilizer. So that posed a problem. And of course, the energy infrastructure, Venezuela, all these other things. So I think he thinks he's playing high level chess game, because he's thinking about the future. How this pans out, we'll wait and see. Last words on this, Perry?
Well, look, things things are going to be rocky for the next couple of weeks yet. Yeah, everything you said is spot on. But on the last thing I do want to point out, we touched on it earlier. Remember what Witkoff said when he came back home prior to the start of this war. The Iranians informed us. It's now common knowledge throughout the world. The Iranians informed us they have enough nuclear material to make, what was it, 11 bombs?
Yeah.
Now, they don't have it at 90%, but they have it at 60%.
So it's a week away.
And
Yeah.
they're right, exactly. And so, with the ability to use intercontinental ballistic missiles and then be able to produce a bomb to put on that, it only takes one. You don't need to use all 11. It only takes one. This is why Trump said, we're going now. We're not going to let them. And this is something the man has said for 40 years. He has said it for 40 years. That country can never have a nuclear weapon. And he said if he was elected president, he was going to make sure of it. And here we are.
Right.
So, what I say to all the Trump haters is, shut your pie hole, let him finish the job, so that we hopefully don't have to lose any more precious American lives. And that's what's most important. Because I'm telling you, Rudy, I think you and I are going to find out how good our prognostication skills are by Saturday.
Yeah.
If things don't get resolved.
We can only hope and pray, right?
Well, I'm now saying let's pray first and hope later.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. They have till Friday, right? So
They have till Friday. And one thing they know about that Orange Man, when he says something, you know he's going to do it.
yeah. I would really like to see a missile count coming out of Iran. I complained about that this morning, is that I can't find anywhere. Reuters said there was a wave of missiles shot at Israel, but they only had one damaged apartment block in Tel Aviv. But what's a wave? How many missiles? How many missiles are they shooting per day? And where? I mean, I want to know. The closest thing I got is to some crappy graphic from the New York Times. Go, oh, here, over the past week, it showed a dozen missile strikes. I'm like, well,
Right.
that's a week. Is it 1 or 2 a day? Is it 5? Is it 7?
And let's also back up to what was it, 9 months ago? You remember at the start of the 12-day war, there were hundreds of missiles being fired every day by Iran. So obviously they don't have the same capability they had then.
Yeah.
And they certainly don't have the same capability they had 3 weeks ago. So there's a reason why. And Rudy, I'm just going to be really ugly about this. The press is deliberately holding back that information or not looking for that information because they want it to look a lot worse than it is right now.
Yeah, I think so. Especially after that Reuters article, waves of Iranian missiles. Okay, I didn't see any visual evidence. So what is waves? I don't know. So I'd like some more information. The way Trump is talking, the way Hegseth is talking, as if they're pretty degraded. And if they're coming to the table, I think they are pretty degraded. But to what extent? My big worry is anti-ship missiles. Mines can be cleared. Mines can be located. I'm still worried about those anti-ship missiles in the cliffs there at Hormuz, and God forbid they have any hypersonic ones that have a range of 2,000 miles that could reach in the Arabian Sea and reach the American fleet. All right, I think we're going to leave it there, Perry, unless you have anything else to say.
No, you covered everything except the A-10 warthogs that are supposedly taking them out.
Yeah, they are working on the cliffs as well as the Apaches, but they are a bit sidelined with drone interdiction. You heard about that F-35 go down. I believe that was hit by a drone, but now they have the Warthogs, which move slower, and the Apaches are working on drone interdiction. So hopefully that's working out as well. All right, Perry, we're going to leave it there. Take care, my friend.
All right, my friend. Be well, and look forward to talking with you next week.
All right, very good. Oh, next week I have a board meeting, so it'll have to be in 2 weeks. Or maybe we'll do it on Wednesday.
All right. Well, you have my condolences.
All right, my brother. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care, buddy.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There goes Perry. Another edition of Tuesdays with Perry under the belt. Another episode 139. We talked about a lot, and we got through what's happening in Iran. Join me tomorrow and every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live stream. Rudy's Revelation. Peace out.